A statement of classical elegance for the established man. Honor him with Aramis and receive the first-class travelers. A collection of Aramis grooming aids. Your gift with any $10 purchase of Aramis, Devon, or Aramis 900. Now at all Garfinkel stores.
Hey everyone, Matt here and welcome to this brand new video. Hope you're all well today. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a fragrance which has been in my collection for a few months now, Aramis. Absolutely love Aramis, it's a classic. I think it's a must-have for anyone who has a collection. But what makes this review even better is the fact that I have an older bottle right here. This is the, I don't know what year this comes from, but this is a cologne. It's literally just a cologne. That's all it says, cologne. This is a 2.2 fluid ounce, sorry. And I couldn't tell you what year this comes from. I'm guessing this might actually be a first edition. I don't know. There's no real way of knowing, to be honest with you. So if you guys could help me, that would be brilliant. That's what we're going to do. We're going to compare both fragrances, see if it still smells the same as it used to. And yeah, just talk a lot about Aramis and the history and everything that comes with it. So if you are wanting to know more about this fragrance, stay tuned. So Aramis was launched in 1966. A lot of people think of this as an 80s fragrance for some reason. I was looking online and there's so many blogs, and every time I read these blogs, people are always associating the 80s with this fragrance. For this to be released in 1966 is quite mind-blowing because it is still a one-of-a-kind fragrance. I don't think it's ever been redone. I don't think any other company has decided to influence it that much. So it's really its own signature scent. It's really a unique blend that you just cannot help but fall in love with if you are into these, classic fragrances. But not only is this just a classic fragrance on its own, it's also a classic gentleman fragrance. If you guys have ever heard of Aramis, they are an American house. They started actually in the 1960s, with this being the first release. They don't make any female fragrances. They're primarily a masculine brand. Basically, the brand of Aramis was a prestige brand in the 1960s for men's grooming products. They were the leading brand at the time. And, still to this day, they're still releasing fragrances. Their fragrances are still available. Not all of them. Some are widely available. Some are a little bit harder to find. But they are a very classic house. And in fact, the name Aramis comes from the Three Musketeers tale itself. And apparently when it first started, this fragrance actually came in a splash bottle. And this is a splash bottle. Of course, you guys will see another clip where I'm showing the bottle in a little bit more detail, but it is a splash bottle. And I just love the color of the juice. I mean, here's the newer version, guys, and this is the older version. I don't know if you can really tell. You probably cannot really tell that well on camera, but this is so much darker than this. And it also smells more concentrated. It smells stronger, it smells richer, it smells deeper. Whereas the new one, it's the same scent, but it's so much lighter, it's more airy, it's probably a little bit more wearable because of the fact that it's lighter. And in this day and age, people probably wouldn't mind smelling this, although they might still associate it with an old man, which is something that a lot of people do associate older fragrances with. But what makes Aramis a classic is not only the fragrance itself, but the perfumer who made this fragrance, Bernard Chant, is a very good perfumer. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. The guy has produced some amazing blends over the years. Absolutely fantastic blends. He's not the most, he's not one of these perfumers who has released 50 fragrances or even over 100 fragrances. He's literally only released 20 fragrances in his lifetime. This probably being the most notorious, although there has been others. In fact, he's made quite a few from Aramis. There's Devon, I believe he's also made 900, GHL, and not to mention a flanker which came out, I believe, in the 90s called Aramis Gold. He's also really popular with the House of Clinique. He did make Aromatic's Elixir, which is a classic fragrance, which, you know, it's a perfume, of course, but those of you who are into your classics will know of that fragrance. And he's also made a few fragrances from the House of Estee Lauder. In fact, the House of Aramis is partnered up with the House of Estee Lauder. So, yeah, in fact, the fragrance GHL, which comes from Aramis, is meant to be a tribute to Joseph Harold Lauder himself, who is, of course, the husband of Estee Lauder. So that was a fragrance that is hard to find now, unfortunately. It's a scent that I have smelled before, and I love it. In fact, people do call that scent the male version of Cinnabar, which, of course, is a fragrance released in the 70s by Estee Lauder. So, yeah, the Estee Lauder and Aramis, they do have a strong connection. I would say that Aramis focus more on the grooming, men's grooming side, the colognes and men's fragrances, whereas Estee Lauder, you know, are quite notorious for their perfumes. I mean, you know, not to mention there are other ones like Beyond Paradise for Men from Estee Lauder, Lauder for Men, and Pleasures. You know, there's a lot of fragrances from Estee Lauder which do also associate with men and the men's side of fragrance. Although Aramis are focused more on that. So yeah. So, you know, if you've ever seen the commercials for Aramis, they were always made very suave and sophisticated. You know, it would always show a man in a suit. Ideally a businessman, a city guy. Sorry about the light, guys. So yeah, that was the whole theme of this fragrance. A classic gentleman fragrance that women would simply adore. And I think women did really like this in the 1960s and, you know, 70s and 80s. And I still think women even like this today. I think it really depends on how you wear it, how much you do wear, for starters, but how you approach yourself with the fragrance. I don't really wear Aramis a lot, and I think it's because I'm quite a casual person, and, you know, the only time I would ever really wear Aramis is if I was getting dressed up in a suit, or even if I was just getting dressed smartly to go somewhere. I think that would be a really good time to wear Aramis, in my opinion. Now, this fragrance does have a ton of notes in it. I'm not going to read those notes out for you, but I am going to spray, of course, the new version on my wrist there. And I'm going to apply some of the vintage by splashing it just on the inside of my arm there. Okay, so there are some big differences straight away when you first apply these. The newer version of Aramis seems to really dry down quicker. I'm actually getting a lot of earthy notes as it dries down. With the newer version, I'm actually getting everything, which is, you know, it's quite peculiar because, I mean, with this being a really old version anyway, I'm surprised that the fragrance is still intact. Because, you know, you can buy vintages and sometimes they don't smell the same, and, you know, it's happened with me. You know, I like my vintages and I've bought quite a lot of them over the years, and not all of them smell that good because of their age and whatnot. But this is actually really quite magical. Really quite magical. So what I get straight away when I smell this fragrance in general is I get a very deep, earthy smell, very mossy. I'm also getting some florals there as well. There's some slight spiciness a little bit as well. And it's also quite airy. It has a bit of a breeziness to it. And I think that's due to the fact that this features aldehydes in the opening, so it gives it this crisp feeling, and it really allows all of the other notes to create like a medley together. Yeah, the vintage version just smells deeper, richer, bolder. Quite fantastic, to be honest. It also has an incense character going on. I believe this has the note of myrrh in it. So it's quite balsamic, green, a little bit spicy, very earthy, and floral as well. I believe it has clover in here. Jasmine is also a note in this fragrance as well. Gardenia as well is also quite strong in this, because gardenia, with it being a white floral, it's quite prominent in the same way a lily is or jasmine is. Yeah. The newer version is very different, although you can still tell it's the same scent. Just deep down, there is a slight difference. I think it's just because of the boldness of the vintage and the airiness of the new version. Patchouli is also very dominant, to be honest with you. There's a very strong, herbaceous, green, bushy patchouli, which I really do admire in this. It isn't like a straight up patchouli scent, but it has a patchouli in this that you do notice, and it just mixes so well with a cardamom note, which is also very dominant, and it's what's giving the fragrance this slight spicy undertone. It isn't one of the strongest notes again, but the fact that they do mix well, ever so well together, just gives it a unique, classy, sort of romantic vibe. Yeah. But what I will say is, as well, this isn't your, stereotypical gentleman fragrance. I do think that there will be people out there who probably don't. I'm sure there are people out there who don't like this fragrance, and I think that's due to the fact that it's not really citrus dominant. And I think citrus is everyone loves a good citrus smell, don't they? I mean, I do. I love citrus notes. This doesn't have it. The only note that has citrus in it is bergamot, but it's very, very light in the opening. And it doesn't really get stronger at all. It stays the same. It stays very weak. Yeah, it's definitely not the strongest note again. To me, the strongest notes in Aramis, without a doubt, are the leather, the patchouli, because I'm getting it stronger now, and oak moss. They are definitely the strongest notes. Of course, oak moss is a strong note anyway. I've heard that if a perfumer is making a fragrance and he uses oak moss, the best thing to do is to only use a tiny bit, because a tiny bit can go a long way. With this version, especially in the vintage, there is this very mossy character. Almost like a soil kind of smell. But with the leather note on top of that, it's really given this fragrance this, it makes you think of a smart man, a man in a suit, charming his way with the ladies. I'm not on about like a modern guy at all. I'm talking about your quintessential 1960s, maybe even 1970s gentleman, bold hair, completely shaven, suit, and just smelling like this. That's the character I get with Aramis. It's truly just a one-of-a-kind fragrance. It's definitely one of those fragrances that I cannot exactly put my nose on and review properly, because it is quite complex. Though I do think that when you smell it for yourself, even if it is in the newer version, it will all just come to you, and you'll realize, wow, okay, this is really quite special. Because it is. To me, it is a very special fragrance. It's a fragrance that I've always loved ever since I first started getting into fragrances. And I just love it because it's so full of character, and it is unique. But you have to wear it at the right times. I don't think it's casual. I don't even think it's necessarily an all year round fragrance. Well, yeah, definitely not an all year round fragrance. To me, this is definitely a fall and winter fragrance. Just because of the way the notes all mix together. You know, that earthiness, but it also has the warmth to it as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, you probably could get away with this in the springtime as well, if it's a cold spring day. I don't think it'll work in the high heat. It may get very cloying. So it is a cool weather sort of fragrance, if that makes sense, to me anyway. And you know, there are some other notes. You know, there's a nice vetiver in here, which is quite nice. It almost smells a little bit like a leafy kind of vetiver. It's not like a grassy vetiver or even an earthy vetiver for that matter. But definitely a leafy, plant-like type of vetiver. You know that smell you get when you're out in nature and it's been raining and you smell all of the wet soil and the grass and everything? The mildew kind of smell? That's what it's like. And I'm still trying to pinpoint whether or not that is the vetiver or not, because it could be other notes. I mean, it could very well be the patchouli mixing in with the oak moss. I don't know. Another thing that I haven't showed you guys is the box. I mean, look at this. It also came with a leaflet which contains a lot of information about Aramis, and it's right here. It's simply called the Aramis Master Plan. And in the leaflet, it just mentions everything to do with Aramis. So, wow, you could get a lot of products for this back in the day. There is an Aramis Invigorating Body Shampoo, a Muscle Soothing Soak, a Bracing Body Splash, Fitness Rub, Super Absorbent Talc, Cool Spray Talc, Aramis Deodorant Selection, an Aramis 24-hour Antiperspirant Spray, which I do believe you can still get, an Aramis Bronzing Gel, the Aramis Cologne, which is what this is, an Aramis Fortified Cologne Spray, and Aramis Cologne Towelettes, which are individually wrapped tissues with the fragrance in it. So you wipe the tissue on yourself to get the fragrance. And it's just filled, guys, absolutely filled with loads of other products. For example, there's an aftershave lotion, an Aramis Astringent, which is a special lotion that helps remove oiliness and grime with deep down cleansing while it helps keep your face feeling fresh and healthy. There's even an Aramis Special Shaving Formula, an Aramis Shaving Foam, an Aramis Pre-Electric Lotion, Aftershave Emulsion, Aftershave Cream, Aramis Hair Wash, a Malt Enriched Shampoo, Malt Enriched Hair Thickener, a Malt Enriched Hair Control, an Aramis Shampoo on a Rope, an Aramis Hair Groom Spray, and last but not least, an Aramis Soap. You can just tell that, you know, they discontinued a lot of these products because they probably weren't needed. They're not needed nowadays, so yeah. But I can understand back in the 60s why this would have been a thing, because obviously Aramis were really passionate about creating grooming products. And with Aramis being the only company at the time to do that, makes a lot of sense. It really is a one-of-a-kind scent that you guys should not be without, even if it is in the newer version. I do apologize for the lighting, guys. I know it's really terrible. but sometimes it's the only thing I can do. If I close my curtains, it's too dark. If I open them, it's too bright. I can never win. Yeah, that has been my little bit more in-depth review of Aramis. It's very different, although if you are into your classics, I would definitely give it a go. If you haven't, it's just a one-of-a-kind scent that I've loved ever since I first started collecting fragrance. I would highly recommend it. So yeah, this has been a little bit of a longer video, but I do hope you guys have enjoyed it nevertheless. Keep smelling good, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.